Hey there guys, so it's 20 degrees, fishing's kind of out of the question now, I'm waiting for the ice to form. So, thought I'd finally go and do a video about the motorcycles, since I gotta winterize them anyway. I know most people who own motorcycles know how to winterize them, but for those who are interested, or for those who are just sick of seeing my fishing content, I thought, you know what, quick and simple, I might as well go through the steps. So, here are the 3 bikes. I have all the stuff I need, except for the Z125. The filter did not actually come in the mail today, and it's Sunday, so it was now or never. Gonna have to wait till next weekend to do it, I think, but that's okay. We'll get the Navi and the Rebel done today. So first thing we gotta do is, crank them up, let them run, get the oil up to temp before we start anything. So let's get these guys out there and running for a couple minutes. Okay, so the oil is warmed up. I have the Rebel up on stands. What we're going to do first, while we let that cool, the oil cool just a little bit, is clean and wax this chain. So, I prefer the Multool line of chain cleaner and lube. You guys are obviously welcome to use whatever you choose. I just have this little leftover tray from some groceries to catch the extra spill. One piece of cardboard I'm going to cut out so it can kind of fit behind the sprocket in the wheel so I can catch the overspray, and obviously a chain brush. And as you guys can see, all I had was a little pocket knife. Cut this out a little like half moon. I can freely spin the wheel to rotate the chain, and that'll sit in place so I don't spray anything onto my tires, and this little tray will just kind of sit underneath to catch any of the dribble. Kind of like that. And as you guys can see, you can see all this old grease and dirt and everything. Came out pretty well. The chain looks pretty good. There's nothing too rusted out.
There's a little spot right there, but you know, it's not the worst. I've seen much worse before. That's alright. This chain's still got some life in it. A little spot right there, but probably got another season or two in it, and I'll probably change it out. But you can see, just with that little chain clean, it got a lot of that gunk out of there. Just gonna give it a couple seconds to dry, and then we'll put some of that chain lube on there. Okay, while we wait for the chain to dry, let's do the oil. So oil's pretty simple. It's just like a car. If you've done a car, you can do a motorcycle. Drain plug over here under the pan. I got this small little collector here, a little pan to collect it. I can dump it out at an auto parts store later. Fill plug is right over here. Some bikes have a dipstick, some bikes don't. It depends, make and model. This one does not. There is a... Oh, the gauge is on the other side. No, it was on this. No, it was on the other side. Where you can see your oil level. This is pretty standard for most bikes. You can't really see it with the lighting that I have. It's on the opposite side, but there's a little porthole here. You can kind of see the oil level. Shine a light in there, you'll be good. Oil filter, the canister's over here in the front. I kind of have an aftermarket horn, so it's kind of a pain to get to, but at least it's a K&N. I can just wrench that off. Most people will usually use saran wrap or tin foil to wrap their exhaust so the oil doesn't drip onto it and discolor it, but pretty standard. So this oil is actually not too bad. It's still pretty transparent. I can see through it. It's still not too dark, not too opaque. So in all honesty, I probably could have left it, but you know, it's just good housekeeping to change it when you're gonna winterize it anyway. And then guys, when you change your oil, your drain plug usually comes with a crush washer. Just make sure that you have a new one to put on, because usually these are meant to be changed out every single time. If you can't, just make sure that, you know, they don't look warped and there's no chipped spots where oil can kind of seep through. It'll cause a leak, and you definitely don't want to put your plug in without a crush washer, because that's how you go and strip your threads, especially if you don't use a torque wrench. And as I was saying, if you have a torque wrench, feel free to check your manual for factory specs. I do have a torque wrench, I do have the manual, but I also wrench on all my vehicles and I never had an issue. So snug as a bug is all you need. You don't need to crank it down to the point where you're moving the whole bike. You don't want it loose to where the vibrations will rattle it loose, but that'll do. Now moving to the opposite side, we're going to the front now. As you guys can see, the filter, the light's kind of in your way, huh? The filter is right here. My exhaust is right here. It's cold right now, so I can touch it, but I'm going to put some foil over here, kind of make a funnel down right into the pan, so I don't get oil all over my pipes. And guys, when you're replacing your oil filter, make sure, obviously you have the right one. Some filters come pre-oiled. I don't know if you guys can see that glinting off the light, but I still think it's best practice to take some new oil, kind of put around the seal, make sure that it is a good seal and that there's no air gaps so oil doesn't leak back out. Clean off the surface here a little bit. Make sure there's no grit where the seal is sitting. You see there is a little bit, so. And then putting it on is just the reverse of taking it off. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so to fill, right? You're gonna fill from this area. You can see now a little bit clearer. Where is it? There it is. That gauge, you can see that it's empty now. Earlier I thought it was just too dark. No, the oil was just much muddier than I thought. But there's a max, and then you just want to make sure that, you know, it's in between those. And you make sure you got to run the engine, make sure the filter and the lines are filled before, you know, you call it a day. So let's just get started on topping it off. I'm using the OEM Honda GN4 that's specifically made for, you know, Honda motorcycles, so I know it's good. And okay, so it looks like we are at the fill level with that oil. I know it's going to drop as soon as I crank this over, but we have to do that in order for all the oil to get into the lines and into the filter. So we're going to remove the funnel, put the cap back on, make sure it's in neutral. Obviously it should be, but you never know. Do it. Neutral. It's gonna be loud. As you guys saw, that oil dropped not below minimum, so it's good. I'm going to give that a second while we go and now head back to our chain. We're going to go back to lubing it up. This is like a waxy substance that's kind of hydrophobic to prevent water and moisture from accumulating and causing rust. Okay, so like I showed you guys earlier, I like the Motul line. This time, instead of the chain clean, it's chain lube. And a heads up for anybody who hasn't done this before, this stuff it goes on liquid, but then it turns into like a tacky kind of wax in a couple minutes. So instead of using the shorter nozzle, I like using the long one just so I'm a little bit more accurate. And if you got some chain clean on your tires, not a big deal. Wipe that stuff off with, you know, Windex or whatever the hell you got. But this stuff, once it dries on there, it's slick. So you want to make sure that, you know, if it's the summer and this is just a routine maintenance, that you get all of this stuff off your tires before you take it out. Because if you're going to have your wheels slide out from under you, it's because you got this on your tires, not really the chain clean. So same process. We're not going to be as liberal with this stuff as we were with the chain clean. We're going to kind of be a little bit more conservative with how much we put on it. But we do want to make sure we get inside, like on this back end of the chains. So
take some paper towel, shop rags, or whatever else you got. We're gonna go and try to soak up some of this excess. You know, the can, the instructions say that you only need to give it about 15 minutes before the stuff is dried and roadworthy. But in my experience, if you take them at their word, 15 minutes is definitely not enough, and a lot of this will splatter onto your sidewall, onto your fender, onto your bag, whatever else you got. So I would actually probably let it sit for a minimum of an hour. That's just my opinion. Feel free to ignore it. I'm just some random guy on the internet. That's it, guys. As far as the chain goes, there's also tightening. You should tighten your chain every once in a while. The rubble here has a little indicator to tell you, you know, whether it's still in line or not. I'm still good. I don't have to touch it really, but if you notice that your chain has way too much slack, you hear a lot of noise when you're riding, make sure you tighten that. A loose chain is it's not great. Definitely don't over tighten it though. That's much worse. If this comes off while you're moving, it's going to cut right through you. You don't want that to happen. Alright, so after lubing the chain and coming back to check the oil, you can see that it is still gone. So whatever that excess that showed was in there earlier has gone into the filter in the line. So now we're going to continue to top this off. I'm going to go pretty slow now and check after every couple pours, because I know it shouldn't take this whole bottle, almost all of it, but it should leave almost 3/4 of a quart. Let's see where we're at. Oh yeah. So you guys saw just from that little top off, it's not quite full yet, but it is getting pretty close. We're at about 80%, so keep going and finish her off. Also, another little tip, if you guys are doing this without the stands, use a piece of wood or 2x4 or brick or something so you can stand your bike more upright using the kickstand so it's not leaned over, because that can affect it, you know, a little bit. Not the end of the world, but if you want it to be as accurate as possible, that's the way to go. And then, if you guys can see, here we are. Perfectly full, topped off. Chain is good. Alright guys, ran back out to O'Reilly's, picked me up some extra oil. They did not have the filter for the Z125, so that will have to be done another day. But I did bring another quart of 1030 for the Navi, just in case I don't have enough. So, for those who don't know, the Navi actually comes with a side stand and a center stand. It is a CVT, so no chain for me to clean, thank God. It's not a big deal, but it is a little more convenient. Oil fill and dipstick is here. Drain plug is here. There's a little spring in there that holds a mesh filter in, and all you got to do is really spray that down with some WD-40. Super easy for the Navi, and I believe it only takes 1 quart. So this should take maybe 1/3 of the time it did for the Rebel. And this little guy, guys, you know, you can joke about this thing as much as you like. I got this for my wife, and honestly, I feel like I use this thing more than she does, and it's a blast. Little dude can go almost everywhere, you know, the 125 over there can. I think the top speed for this thing, I got it up to like 53, and that was like downhill with the wind in my back. But point being is 48 to 50, no problem, keeps up with traffic. Storage box, automatic, 110 miles a gallon. This thing's great, dude. Love this little bike.
I stand corrected. The spring for the oil filter is on the opposite side, but it is pretty obvious to see. So, am I dribbling? There we go. Take you guys to the other side, and you can see where this filter is. So, I don't know why they put it on the opposite side. I'm sure it was just a logistical thing. But this thing right here holds the mesh that is the filter, meant to catch up whatever drips. It's garbage anyway, so if it drips, it drips. Because unlike the traditional filters like the Rebel or the car, this one does not actually have a canister to hold any oil. There's that spring to hold any oil. Okay, so there's that. That's a little cap. It's got a little seal on the outside. Make sure I wipe that off later since it rolled on the carpet. Here's that spring I told you guys about. And the filter. Just blast this with a little bit of WD-40. Try to get anything that might be on there off. And guys, you tell me, anybody else think WD-40 smells good? Like kind of like a vanilla caramel kind of smell? Maybe I'm crazy, I probably am, but I can't be the only one, right? Oh, there is. There's one fleck right here. So I'm gonna put this back down, pick up the camera so you guys can see. I don't know if you can see on my thumb, there's a pretty big metal piece right there, that silver fleck. So, yeah, just make sure we catch anything like that. Blast it again. Pretty easy. Pretty easy. And unlike the Rebel, where we have a gauge, this thing has a good old dipstick. Alrighty. Okay. And from what I understand, when they first designed this thing, it was supposed to be for like the Indian market and the Mexican market, and they didn't actually intend to bring it here to the US. And they had a surplus of these over in Mexico, and they decided, you know what, why not? Mini bikes are hot, our Grom is selling great, Kawasaki's got their 125, CF Moto's got their little Papio, and their other little mini bikes, so we'll release it here, see how it does. And from the two dealerships that I had checked out, these things were selling like hotcakes when they first came out because they were so cheap. $18.07. That was MSRP. Obviously, there's dealer fees and licensing, but neither here or there. But now this year, I think they're up to like $2,200. That's a pretty big increase for this little dude. So people want these things. So I'm pretty glad that we picked this up when it was still $400 cheaper. I'm sure you guys can find these secondhand
on Marketplace or Craigslist or wherever. Probably about the same price as MSRP, but who knows? I'm sure these are not going to be like Groms or BRZ, or sorry, BR. Oh my gosh, Z125s, not BR125s, where people are trying to learn how to wheelie with them, so it shouldn't be an issue for damage. I think a lot of times people are, like I was saying, expecting it to be something it's not. So when they realize, oh, this thing tops out at like 50, 53, 52, this thing can't really do wheelies. This thing is still running on a carburetor. They decide, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to clean a bowl. And they give up. But I don't think that's fair for the little Navi. Crank it real quick. According to this, she's full. I still got quite a bit of oil in there, so I'd be surprised. But crank her over, see how it is. Let me walk you guys through this real quick. So this thing does have a kickstand kill, so you gotta make sure your kickstand's up. Center stand's okay, you can stand the center stand. This thing's got a choke, old school, right? That's the tack, or not the tack, the dash. It doesn't have a tack. It's very, very basic. Sorry about the glare. So, brake, starter. I said it's 20 degrees, so it's gonna have a little bit of a time trying to start. There we go. It's kind of funny because it is a CVT. This back wheel is always gonna run. Like I can stop it with a finger, but you know, it's what it is. Not a huge fan of this exhaust, guys. Like, it just is a giant can. Sounds really cruddy. Juts out too far. They make a couple aftermarkets, but for $400 or $500, it's almost a third of the price of this bike. So I just don't see the point. Let that sit for a second. And the oil pull back down. What do you know? Can't tell if you guys can see it, but that's right on the money. So I'm gonna call that good. We'll save that other bottle of oil for next year, or if we need to top off for some reason. Guys, I almost forgot to mention one super important thing. Make sure you put stabilizer in your gas tank and then top off your gas tank as high as it can go. That's to prevent any sort of accumulation of moisture in there and causing rust inside your tank. This just makes it so the gas is good to go when you start it up in spring. Sometimes you get a little bit of like, it's not really smoke, it's more like it's smoke. It's a little bit of white smoke, and it smells a little different when you first run it through that first tank. But in order to make sure that everything goes smooth in the spring, just make sure you put some of that in your tank. And then actually, guys, there's one last thing I forgot to mention. I should probably say something. For anybody who is storing their motorcycles overnight, over the winter for the first time, make sure you get yourself one of these battery tenders. They're similar to a trickle charger, but they'll stop once the battery reaches, capacity, so you don't overcharge. That is another thing. This is nice because this one's got both the old school, acid battery and the new lithiums. If you got like an electric bike or something, these work with vehicles too. So usually, your battery is going to be located under your seat. I already installed some of these quick connect adapters, so you can, in the summer, switch that so you can plug in a USB charger for your phone or your whatever. But in the winter, you plug this directly into it, and it'll keep your battery charged. And I usually have one, and I just cycle it between the 3 motorcycles, and it's not an issue. So, like every month, I'll just swap vehicles, and it seems to have worked for me. So, just wanted to add that. So, yeah.
Good. So now we know in the future, one bottle
1 gallon is enough for the 500 and then the Navi. So, you know, thank you guys for watching if you've made it this far. Just sharing my daily life with you guys. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to know about or ask about any of the bikes or my fishing videos. You know, happy to chat with you guys. Peace.